So my initial reaction to this, because our president, is a lot of talk, was like, I'll believe it when I see it.
Sam Seder and Emma Vigeland of the Majority Report have a discussion in this video about Hunter Schafer, the trans actress who posted about getting her passport back with male gender designation, and this is a bit of a viral thing now. I'll have some opinions as we go, and then I want to know what you think in the comments.
And then we had this viral story with Hunter Schafer, this wonderful actress from Euphoria and Cuckoo and all these other great films who...
Euphoria is a movie.
It's a show. Okay. Close enough. But very popular show, and she is the best thing about it. The first season is great because she incorporated she wrote a lot of it. And a lot of it is about her experience growing up trans. She grew up in North Carolina and was a part of was a plaintiff in, I think, an ACLU lawsuit about the bathroom bills. Her activism is a huge part of what she does. She was also a part of Jewish Voice for Peace protests unrelated to this, but like, Hunter Schafer's the best of us right now, and she had her passport stolen at one point and had to reapply for one. And as one of the most high-profile trans, actors in the country, to have this happen to her, it's just a gut check.
Hello, Internet. I don't really post much these days, but I had a bit of a harsh reality check today and felt like it's important to share with whoever is listening. So I'm sure most of us remember on, I think, the first day of Trump's presidency, he signed an executive order to declare only two genders recognized by the state, male and female, assigned at birth. And as a result of this, which I wrote down because I want to get it right, the Bureau of Consular Affairs has frozen passport applications requesting a gender marker change or renewals or new applications with a gender marker differing from an applicant's gender assigned at birth. So my initial reaction to this, because our president, is a lot of talk, was like, I'll believe it when I see it. And today, I saw it on my new passport, male. So now, to specify, my gender markers were first changed in my teens when I first got my driver's license, and then passports following. All have been female since then. Hasn't really been a problem. However, last year when I was filming in Barcelona, our car got broken into and my bag got stolen, and inside of that was my passport, which was supposed to last me up until my 30s. And so I got an emergency passport, which was very simple at the time. It's basically just a copy of my old passport, but temporary and only supposed to be used within the year. So as soon as I got back to the States, I had to get this fixed and get it replaced with a real proper passport, which I went to the federal passport agency today in LA and did. I've had to do this one time before. No part of the process was different. I filled everything out just like I normally would. I put female, and when it was picked up today and I opened it up, they had changed the marker to male. And I'm not making this post to fearmonger or to create drama or receive consolation. I don't need it, but I do think it's worth posting to sort of note the reality of the situation and that it is actually happening. And I was shocked. I was shocked because I don't know. I just didn't think it was actually going to happen.
And it goes on.
She has a longer explanation where she talks about it more, but yeah, this is what's happening. I mean,
you know, what's really interesting is I think when the conversation of trans and the emergency around trans people taking over, right? You imagine people who present differently. Like, I think most of us, if we met Hunter Schafer on the street, we would assume, I mean, look, people are like, oh, you shouldn't assume whatever. I mean, most of us are pretty hardwired to make a guess one way or the other. And I think you'd look at Hunter Schafer and you would sort of presume that female, right? But I think when most of people have these sort of arguments at Thanksgiving or whatever, they're imagining something that is more complicated presentationally, right? I just think it's interesting to have an example of a trans woman who is an actor and successful and very female presenting, bringing this as, look, I mean, obviously if she was going to go through customs and shows this thing, you'd think that the guard is going to look at that and see male and be like, like it could cause confusion when confusion doesn't need to be happening.
it's insane, and it feels like
Was there an existing record that she was trans?
Yeah.
So she goes into it and saying she didn't change her birth certificate, and her hypothesis is that they're cross-checking the birth certificates, and that's the only way she can think of that she was
identified that way. And she's also one of the most high-profile trans celebrities in the country and is super popular with younger folks.
I've never heard of her.
Yeah. Laverne Cox is another person. Shout out to her.
I know Laverne Cox
because she likes our show.
Well, no, because I saw Orange is the New Black was the last show I think I saw on television.
Yes, you're really up to date here.
That's a newer show, right? When was the last time that was on?
maybe a decade ago.
Yeah, it was popular than 10 years ago. But she's just, I mean, first of all, I admire her activism in a variety of different areas. But, like, this is important because it outs Hunter Schafer is somebody who's probably has a lot of money as an actress, maybe not a lot, but she's going to be comfortable and perhaps everybody in her industry knows that she's trans most likely, and when they cast her, they're likely aware of this. But how this really affects people is if you're not famous and you're applying for a job and you need to give a government document proving who you are. This outs you to your employer. This is a privacy violation. It outs you to your employer, and the Trump administration has openly said we're going to allow employers, say you're a landlord, right? You want to rent and you need to provide government documentation, and it outs you as a trans person. They may not rent to you. They may not hire you. There's already high rates of discrimination for LGBTQ plus people. This makes it even more difficult because it shows potential employers, shows potential landlords, or if you're trying to buy a home, this person is trans, so they know automatically, okay, I can discriminate against this person.
Right, and the follow through of that, of course, is you go, well, I don't like trans people, so that's fine. We should be able to discriminate, but that's sex discrimination, right? So if you're able to do it with a certain group, say trans people, based on gender, then you walk all the way up the line. Then you're able to deny a woman a loan because of her gender. So, and you go, well, that's absurd, but that's the slippery slope.
That's what they're trying to do.
Also, I would imagine there are countries where there's, well, this country's getting there, but there's significant hostility to trans people,
right?
And
all the lawsuits
you show up in that that border crossing or customs or whatever it is, that also creates an issue.
Right. She said she was abroad for when she was filming when her passport was stolen, and this outs her if she were to go abroad again, no matter where she goes. So, yeah, it's deeply depressing and disgusting, but this is where we're at. And Project 2025, for all the folks that wanted to downplay it, the attacks on trans people and LGBTQ plus people were a big part of what the promises were. And the Project 2025 tracker already shows that they're over 50% of the way through their anti-LGBTQ measures, which include rescinding Title IX rules that strengthened sexual assault and discrimination cases, removing words about gender identity and sexual orientation from federal rules, reversing prohibitions on healthcare discrimination based on gender identity. That more and more the Trump administration is implementing what they already promised.
A couple of people are IMing to say, getting there. I believe that the majority of American people, just as a cultural matter, are not as anti-trans as the rolling back of civil rights would suggest. That was my point.
Right.
In that moment, I do not believe. Entering it. Maybe this is more aspirational. My sense is that a customs agent at a U.S. international airport is going to be, on balance, less hostile to a trans person coming in than in many countries around the world. That was really my point.
Yeah,
I believe me. I am aware of both, like, what is happening here in terms of civil rights and also from a cultural standpoint.
I think that if you look at it in the lens of a slippery slope in the Project 2025, I agree with Sam Seder that the majority. My hunch, and I don't have data on this, but my hunch is that the average American citizen may or may not understand trans, may or may not have strong feelings about trans as an issue. But when you start stripping rights from people, they start with a group that is a vulnerable group in the first place, and they strip those rights away, and they make scary arguments about, this one or two athletes that see how unfair it was, or this drag queen that was saying hateful things in a library, and they hold up a very small, like count on one hand number of examples that they exaggerate and or flat out lie about to fearmonger. And make that sort of bitter pill dunk, like, well, that sounds bad. I don't mind that person's rights being taken away. They set a precedent of stripping rights. And however you feel about Joe Biden, he did make a comment at one point when the Supreme Court essentially overturned Roe v. Wade, which was basically, what are they going to take away next? And that is a nice question to ask any step of the way down this road. What are they going to take away next? Medicaid, maybe. Looks like. And then what are they going to take away next? Right? So it may not cut you to the bone right now, but you can bet that sooner or later, they're going to take away something, whether it's your government job or your Medicaid. They're going to take something away that does hurt, and it'll be too late. Right? It'll be too late. Let me know what you think in the comments.